Morning. So today I will discuss about the details mechanism of edema due to each and every factors, that is decreased plasma oncotic pressure, increased capillary hydrostatic pressure, lymphatic obstruction, tissue factors, that is increased oncotic pressure of interstitial fluid and decreased tissue tension, increased capillary permeability, and finally there is sodium and water retention. So today I will discuss about the first three mechanism, that is decreased plasma oncotic pressure, increased capillary hydrostatic pressure, and lymphatic obstruction. You all know that decreased plasma oncotic pressure, when oncotic pressure is the normal pressure that tends to draw fluid inside the vessel, and if it is decreased, then there is no flow of fluid into the vessel. Similarly, in increased capillary hydrostatic pressure, if there is, because normally hydrostatic pressure drives the fluid outside the vessel, and if it is increased, then it will drive more fluids to the interstitial tissue space. And after the balance between the hydrostatic pressure and oncotic pressure, there are some fluid remain in interstitial tissue space that is drained by the lymphatics. And if there is lymphatic obstruction, then that fluid will not be drained, so there will be edema in the interstitial tissue space. So now let us go the first mechanism, that is decreased plasma oncotic pressure. So the plasma oncotic pressure, that is exerted by the total amount of plasma protein, and this pressure tends to draw fluid into the vessel. And out of there are so many plasma proteins, but the most important is the albumin. And I already discussed that there are two types of osmotic pressure, that is crystalloid osmotic pressure exerted by the electrolytes, and there are another pressure is oncotic pressure that is exerted by the that is called colloid osmotic pressure, that is exerted by the protein and mainly albumin. Though this colloid osmotic pressure is very minimal, but it has the significance physiologically, it has more significance than the crystalloid osmotic pressure. So in this figure you can see that if the plasma protein level falls below the normal level, so normal level is the minimum, the normal range is the 5 to 8 gram per dl. So the minimal, the lower side normal range is 5 gram per dl. So if the total plasma protein falls below the 5 gram per dl, that results in lowering of plasma oncotic pressure in such a way that it can no longer counteract the effective hydrostatic pressure of the blood. So when there is fall in protein level, that results in the fall of osmotic pressure or oncotic pressure. So normally it draws fluid into the vessel. So when there will be great fall of osmotic pressure here, then it cannot counteract the effective hydrostatic pressure. So this will result into the increased outward movement of fluid from the capillary wall and decreased inward movement of fluid from the interstitial tissue space, that leads to edema. So you may understand here that since it does not counteract the hydrostatic pressure, effective hydrostatic pressure, so there will be increased outward movement of the fluid and the inward movement of fluid will be decreased. So there will be accumulation of fluid in the interstitial tissue space causing edema. And generally hypoproteinemia, if there is hypoproteinemia, protein will be less in the body, it usually produces anasarca, that is called systemic edema or generalized edema. And I already told you that out of various plasma proteins, albumin has 4 times higher plasma oncotic pressure than globulin. So it is mainly hypoalbuminemia that results in edema more often. So normal level of albumin is 3.5 to 5.5 gram per dl. So if it falls below 2.5 gram per dl, then there will be great fall in the plasma oncotic pressure. So out of all the proteins, the albumin has more importance in respect of exertion of oncotic pressure. So if albumin level falls below 2.5 gram per dl, that results into edema. So now we will go for the examples. Edema of renal disease, that is nephrotic syndrome, acute glomerulonephritis. In this case, there will be loss of protein from the body that results into hypoalbuminemia. The second example is the ascites of liver disease, especially cirrhosis. You know that albumin is synthesized in the liver. So if there is cell will be damaged in case of cirrhosis, then there will be great fall of oncotic pressure. Then other causes of hyperproteinemia, that is nutritional deficiency, protein losing enteropathy. So in these cases, there will be again hypoalbuminemia leading to fall in osmotic pressure and thus results in the interstitial tissue edema. Now coming to the next mechanism, that is increased capillary hydrostatic pressure. You know that this capillary hydrostatic pressure is the force that normally tends to drive fluid through the capillary wall into the interstitial tissue space by counteracting the force of plasma oncotic pressure. You know that this is the hydrostatic pressure, which by counteracting the osmotic pressure, it drives fluid outside the vessel. Then if there is rise in hydrostatic pressure at the venular end of the capillary, which is normally low, which is normally 12 millimeter of mercury, and if this pressure increases to a level more than the plasma oncotic pressure, so that will result in minimal or no reabsorption of fluid at the venular end, that will lead to edema. That means if this hydrostatic pressure increased beyond the osmotic pressure, here the fluid goes into the vessels, so there will be minimal or no fluid goes into the vessel. So this fluid will remain in the interstitial tissue space causing edema. Then example, coming to examples, that edema of cardiac diseases. Best example is the congestive heart failure. In case of congestive heart failure, so venous return will be less. So there will be congestion of blood in the venous system. So that will increase the hydrostatic pressure toward the venular end of the capillary. Same also in the constrictive pericarditis. Second example is the again ascites of liver disease. In case of cirrhosis, there is portal hypertension. Because there is fibrosis of the liver, so there will be congestion, backflow of the blood into the portal circulation, leading to portal hypertension, and that lead to the accumulation of fluid in the peritoneal cavity. Then in case of passive congestion, if there is mechanical obstruction due to thrombosis of the veins of lower legs, if there is varicosities of the vein, if there is pressure by pregnant uterus, if there is pressure by tumors, so that will also lead to the increase in capillary hydrostatic pressure, and there will be edema in the interstitial tissue space. Then next example is the postural edema. The people who stands for long time, like traffic constables, so there may be transient edema of feet and ankles, that is due to increased venous pressure, who remain standing erect for long time. I have given the example such as traffic constables. So there may be edema found in these people who do their duty by standing for a long time. Now coming to the next mechanism is the lymphatic obstruction. This is also very important mechanism of edema. Normally you know all that when there is balance between the hydrostatic pressure and osmotic pressure, still then there are some fluid left in the interstitial tissue space, which is normally drained by the way of lymphatics. So here you can see in this figure that hydrostatic pressure is normal, osmotic pressure is normal, at the venular end hydrostatic pressure is also normal. Here there is normal fluid exchange is going on, but whatever fluid is remain here in the interstitial tissue space, I already told you that under 11 mmHg pressure fluid is coming out, and under 9 mmHg pressure fluid is going in. So there are some fluid left in the interstitial tissue space that is normally drained by the lymphatics, which ultimately goes to the venous circulation. So examples are, if there is obstruction, here the cross is there, if there is obstruction into these channels, so that may cause localized edema, that is, in other word we call it as lymphoedema. So example are removal of axillary lymph nodes in radical mastectomy for carcinoma of breast. So in that case, if the lymph nodes is removed, the side in which side it is removed, in that side that arm will be affected, there will be lymphoedema, because that lymph nodes is removed, so that will cause the local lymphoedema of the affected arm. Then if there is pressure from outside, on the main abdominal thoracic duct, if there is any tumor, if there is effusions in serous cavities, so that also may produce lymphoedema. Sometimes the main lymphatic channels may rupture, and that may discharge chyle into pleural cavity, so we call it as chylothorax. If this is discharged into peritoneal cavity, we call it as chylous ascites. So if there is any rupture of the lymphatic channel, so that may drain this edema fluid into the lymphatics, into the serous cavities like pleural cavity or peritoneal cavity. Then inflammation of lymphatics. If there is inflammatory process in lymphatics, so there will be congestion in the lymphatic channels. So best example is the filariasis, which results in the chronic lymphoedema of scrotum, and there may be edema in legs, and it is called as elephantiasis. The legs will be swollen and will resemble the leg of elephants, so that is called elephantiasis. Then if there is occlusion of lymphatic channels, by malignant cells, that may also result into lymphoedema. So malignant cells sometimes they obstruct the lymphatic channels, so that will also cause the lymphoedema. So this is all about the first three mechanisms, that is decreased plasma oncotic pressure, increased hydrostatic pressure, and lymphatic obstruction. So in the next class I will explain you the next three mechanisms, that is tissue factors, increased capillary permeability, then sodium and water retention, that is again divided into intrinsic renal mechanism, extrarenal mechanism and ADH mechanism. So in the next class I will describe the another three mechanisms. Thank you.